poor, he prays for others and wishes them to pray for him. So let's count that at the moment as not a match at all. So you have perhaps partial matches in three of the characteristics and probably not in the other. So that's the way it is, and it's up, like in every other case, it's up to you to come to your own conclusions in this area. Well, who else was there besides St. Francis, La Salette, Nostradamus? Well, there is a very interesting individual by the name of Malachi Martin. Father Martin wrote a number of books, and one of them seems to be both a history of the Catholic Church during the 1990s, and as well as, of course, a work of fiction. He is worthwhile looking at when you want to explore this further. What can we say about the future of this Pope? What challenges will he face? Will he be in a position to solve them easily and successfully? Well, let me give you an idea about the kind of difficulty that he has. In the first place, there are abuse scandals. I don't have a question mark after that word. It's not everybody is guilty of such pedophilia, for example. So it is still an alleged condition of most of the clergy, but it is a fact for some of them, and it needs to be cleared up somehow. That burden for the Church needs to be removed, and this Pope has the opportunity to do so. What else? Well, people have been complaining, and the authorities have been arguing for a lot of years about money laundering. After all, the Roman Catholic Church, like every church, has a steady supply of cash. And that has turned out to be apparently too much of a temptation to ignore on behalf of some evil people. And so that also needs to be solved in some fashion. There is a third issue that is, however, even more difficult and more damning, and I have to surround this with question marks and quotation marks and tell you that considerable pain is involved in bringing this to your attention. At least one of the popes, I think it was Pius VI, disclosed to a confidant of his sometime during the 1970s and that the smoke of Satan, as he puts it, had entered into the sanctuary. What was meant was that some enthronement, some cultic practice had been performed in the Vatican itself, and that some of the elevated clergy were indeed involved in that. Well, of course, if true, this needs to be solved, and the Church is also in a position, I think, to solve it. Perhaps not easily, but definitely. But the failure to solve it can be a disastrous consequence for everyone. Okay. What are the other issues? Well, there is, of course, Israel and Islam. Well, you have to remember, of course, that the Roman Catholic Church is not just a religious institution, it is also a secular power. It is a sovereign nation state. And so it has relationships with individuals, other groups, other religions all over the world. Some of these are pulling to get the attention of the papacy, to have it endorse things, and the papacy itself would like to be more widely accepted as well. There are consequences to this. These negotiations result in agreements or the lack of them, and it remains to be seen just how and in what way the papacy will manage to solve these things. The real issue has to do later on with the control of the Temple Mount, and it can be foreseen that if not handled in the best possible way, that the Antichrist himself may desire to sit in the place of God at that place on the temple, in the new temple, which some people say is going to be built. What else? The secret of Fatima. Fatima, remember, is a prophecy given by an apparition by Saint Mary in 1917 in Portugal. And at that time, three visions were given. One was that World War I would soon end, and it did within a year. The second one was that there was the possibility that unless some steps were taken, there would be a second world war following signs in the sky. And of course it did happen that in the case of it did happen that after an aurora borealis occurred, within a year Germany had invaded Poland, and we were on our way to a second world war. The third vision of Fatima had something to do with the church itself, and most of that prophecy was revealed, but there is a very deep suspicion that not all of it was given out. And remember, this is at the request by the Virgin Mary herself. In addition, there is a prophecy. There is a condition about the coming Antichrist and ETs, and we're going to get back to that in just 1 minute. And we're back to pick up where we left off, which was the challenges to be faced by the 112th Pope of the Roman Catholic Church. We said that Fatima was our last discussion, and we can come back to it again at a later date. But in addition, there is the possibility of a coming Antichrist. Well, now, I know this is difficult for some of you to grasp and to say, I think that's coming in our lifetime, because there is a clear possibility that it may come 1,000 years from now, or 25,000 years from now, or never, if we're lucky. But nevertheless, there are a lot of people talking about it, and it is true, that it seems to be true, that the Antichrist and the false prophet occur together in Scriptures, and especially in the book of Revelations. And if you are face to face with the Antichrist, you are face to face with somebody who is not of this world. This is Satan himself, and anybody who believes that they can conquer this easily and without difficulty is probably very much deluded. In addition, there is another challenge ahead, and that is extraterrestrials, life elsewhere in the universe. There's some people who say we will be face to face with it, that the existence of of these people will require action and examination by all the religious communities throughout the earth. That in so doing, new doctrines will be probably required, and sometimes that will be to everybody's benefit, and sometimes it will be easily diverted and subverted into things that are not good. Well, those are the challenges to be faced. Let's go on to the next part of our discussion having to do with the false prophet. And you say, well, what false prophet? Well, good. I'm glad you asked the question, because here is the way it appears in Scripture. In Mark 13, it says, "At that time of distress," referring to elsewhere in this same section, "At that time, if anyone says to you, 'Look, here is Christ,' or 'Look, there he is,' do not believe it. For false prophets, do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will appear and perform signs and miracles to deceive the elect, if that were possible. So be on your guard. I have told you everything ahead of time." So Mark here spells out pretty clearly there's some things to come. Anything else? Oh, yeah. There are lots of other things, and I'll read you this one. This is from Revelation 19. And it says, "Then I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against the rider on the horse and his army. But the beast was captured, and with him the false prophet, who had performed the miraculous signs on his behalf. With these signs he had deluded those who had received the mark of the beast and worshipped his image. The two of them were thrown alive into the fiery lake of burning sulfur." So a couple of things to notice here. Both the false prophet and the beast are identified separately as individual characters in this drama. And it's done twice in this particular section, and it ends up with the victory of the saints. So pretty clearly something else is going on in Scriptures that we also need to look at. What else might there be? What is it? Only the Christian church which is concerned about the false prophet? No, actually, there is a very clear discussion of this in Islam these days. Some people there seem to be looking forward to the reincarnation or the appearance of the Mahdi, the 12th Imam, who would, during a time of chaos and crisis, come to help and preserve and defend Islam itself. There are others who say, oh yeah, well, there's going to be a reincarnation of the Buddha. And there may be yet other religions who have somewhere in their orthodoxy an image of the return of a spiritual personality. And so this false prophet is not unique to the religions of the world. It is also the one that most of us are paying attention to, but nevertheless. What else do we know about this condition? Well, this false prophet occurs at the same time and in conjunction with the Antichrist. And so I want to read and discuss what we know about that personality. First of all, someone has said the Antichrist, the beast of Revelation. They don't, because the word Antichrist is not, I don't think it appears at all, but it is someone who is a false Christ. That appears certainly. This Antichrist was said to be born in 1962. By whom? Well, actually, by Jean Dixon, according to some people. She had a dream, and in that dream, there appeared someone being born. And someone later on said, oh, that must be the Antichrist, and therefore the Antichrist is already here. Well, if that's true, that individual personality is 51 years old and not yet appeared on the scene. So there is some probability that that's not the correct one. On the other hand, we certainly don't know. It was said in these prophecies by Nostradamus that this would be preceded, that the Antichrist would be involved in World War III. A world war which was to begin in 1989 or 1990, and what in fact happened in those days, some of you would say nothing. Well, others of you would say in 1990 was the beginning of the first Gulf War, and in 1989 Saddam Hussein might actually have been practicing it and planning for it, even in 1989, when, according to Nostradamus, all of this was to occur. This is also preceded by growing chaos. Well, now we're in a personality contest. If you think that the world is involved in chaos and that it's growing, then you may count yourself on the side of those who believe that the Antichrist is on his way, or here, or is alive and practicing. On the other hand, if you don't think so, and if you pray a lot, maybe you know that this can be avoided. There are obviously implications now, not only in Syria. By the way, this is being done in April of 2013. Not only in Syria, but also in Korea, and who else knows where the chaos will next appear. There is something else that will be known about the Antichrist. It is said that he will at first appear to be full of solutions for everybody. He will be a thoroughly nice and respectable person who solves 2 or 3 of the great problems in the world, and everyone will be glad to have him among us. There are others who say, well, following that, he will become gradually more and more strong in the area of financial control, and finally he will end up in control of the world's finances, and in so doing also turns evil. And in the final analysis, it turns out that in the scriptures it is said that he will arrive at the point where each individual cannot eat or drink or buy anything unless they are tied in under his control. Okay. And from that comes the mark of the beast. Well, that's a lot. That's a lot of possibilities, but also possibilities which may be avoided. Well, because there are a series of events still to come where this could have been stopped. For example, it is said by some of the same people I've just quoted here that there will be eventually the beginning of a war between Greece and Turkey. And